and a hush falls across the audience. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. How is everybody doing this afternoon? Enjoying your tea, enjoying your refreshments. Welcome to the first Gamechangers in Sustainability Series event. My name is Amy Dacey. I'm the Executive Director of the Sign Institute for Policy and Politics here at American University. And the Sign Institute is co-sponsoring this event today with the Kogod School of Business. We are thrilled to have you all here. The good news for us is you got in. This by far is one of the most popular events we've had on campus, and we thank you for attending. It's a popular ticket, one might say, which Seth Goldman, you might be the Taylor Swift of sustainability. So it is standing room only here, and we have more than, I think, 300 plus students, faculty, staff, and alumni who signed up also to be online, so we join our online friends as well. We are so thrilled to be joined today by a number of the members of Kogod's Sustainability Advisory Council. It's a high-level group of 24 leaders advising Kogod on its nationally recognized sustainability management program. The council includes 10 CEOs, globally recognized investors, and top current or former sustainability officers from some of the country's leading companies. That includes JPMC, Starbucks, Walmart, KKR, Carlyle, and so many others. So what an opportunity to have this group working with certainly Dean Marchik and the students and faculty here. American University has sustainability in its DNA. We were the first carbon neutral campus in the country. The National Science Foundation gave us a $15 million grant to study and reduce food waste. And the Kogod School of Business has one of the top sustainability management programs in the country, its fastest growing program. Students can earn a master's in sustainability, and non-Kogod undergraduate students can minor in sustainability management. Each of Kogod's 5 departments have incorporated sustainability into their teaching and research. That's each and every department, something to be quite proud of. And now with our new speaker series, CEOs increasingly look to Kogod as the place to talk about their commitment to sustainability. We have 12 big-time CEOs coming to campus this year, from Fortune 500 CEOs to entrepreneurs to major investors. The Sign Institute is thrilled to partner with Kogod for events with 10 of these CEOs. It is fitting that Seth Goldman is our inaugural speaker for this series because he truly is a game changer. Seth currently serves as co-founder and chief change agent at Eat the Change, a company which makes healthy snacks and just iced tea. You might be familiar with some of the products. Look around you, look down, look on your seats. He is the co-founder. He is also co-founder of Honest Tea, which he started in 1998 and later sold to Coke. He is executive chair of Beyond Meat, and he is a serial entrepreneur and widely recognized as one of the most creative innovators in food and beverage industry. He is also no stranger to AU. He served as Kogod's graduation speaker, and Kogod students volunteered to do a consulting project several years ago for Honest Tea. Equally important, he serves as a seed investor and mentor to other entrepreneurs, including women and people of color. Thank you for being here, Seth, and I am pleased to introduce to you all today the Dean of the Kogod School of Business, Dean Marchik, who is an incredible asset to us at American University. He's an incredible partner to do incredible programming with on campus, and we are so excited to be working with him here at AU, and he is going to hold a conversation with Seth Goldman today. So on to you,
Great.
Dean Marchik.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Seth, for being here. Thank you all for being here. And for those of you who are online, thank you for joining. So before we get to the questions, Seth has a video which I think has never been shown.
This is the premiere.
This is the premiere
event.
So maybe you could just
a little context. First of all, this is so wonderful to be here. I'm so grateful and support AU really investing deeply in sustainability. It is the conversation about our future, and so I appreciate how seriously it's been taken. I just got back from Mozambique within the past few weeks, and so we just finished. It's even still a little unfinished, but this is the mostly finished version of a video that captures the trip. Mozambique is one of the poorest countries in the world, but it's also one of the most beautiful and one of the most protected in terms of sourcing. So this is a new tea garden. It actually is for the tea leaves that go into our half tea, half lemonade. And I'll just show the video, give you a feel for what happens.
Great.
We wanted to learn more about the newest supplier for Just Iced Tea. So in January of 2023, my Eat the Change co-founder, Chef Spike Mendelson, and I traveled to Mozambique to see the land and meet the partners who grow our tea leaves. It was a magical journey that involved 60 hours of travel from door to door, with the last 6 hours on some very bumpy roads. But when we finally made it to the tea garden, it was all worth it.
Oh, Seth, look.
There it is.
This is what we.
This is worth all the travel.
This is worth every single minute of travel.
Yeah. So we literally will go anywhere to find the world's best teas. Chadamagoma used to be a huge tea garden, but was abandoned during Mozambique's civil war. It was reopened in 2012 as a fully organic farm, making it the largest organic tea garden in the world. And the most remote, so what's also incredibly pristine about it, there are no pollution sources for hundreds of miles around. Not just, in organic, sometimes they'll say it has to be a 3-mile radius. We could say a 50 or even a 100-mile radius, and there's no pollution sources around. So this is going to be the cleanest tea you can get. This is organic agriculture at scale.
What's it mean to be organic and sustainable? Well, you got to compost.
Because we don't want to use chemical fertilizer, so this whole compost, facility is set up all through stages using fresh crops, but also
Banana leaves,
and also cow dung to create that high nutrient dense fertilizer that can be spread throughout the garden. I know you've heard me speak with such passion about this tea.
Yeah.
And obviously, we love the taste. We love what it does for the consumer.
Yeah.
But it's also about what it does for the planet, what it does for the people involved in
Yeah.
the supply chain. And every time we sell a bottle of tea,
Yeah.
that's what we're supporting.
Comes back here.
Yeah. Just as impressive as the commitment to organic is how Chadamagama has embraced fair trade labor standards. Mozambique is one of the poorest countries in the world, so there are enormous needs. But we saw firsthand how transformational fair trade can be. So, when we created this brand called Just Iced Tea, people said, well, what does it mean? And what we've just seen is what it means, that we want to make sure where we're growing our tea, we can have confidence that the workers are being treated just and fair, and both in terms of what they're paid. But we also want to make sure there's a portion of our sales that can go back to invest. And this is really one of the poorest communities in the world. Fair Trade Council meetings give workers a say in how fair trade premiums are invested. This is especially important for women who often don't have their own economic resources. And so, can we take extra funds from every purchase and invest in the school, invest in chairs and desks, invest in a bathroom for the school, invest in a roof for the school? And so for us, when we say Just Iced Tea, this is part of that equation. When we talk about mission in a bottle, all the things that make Just Iced Tea special, it's everything we've seen today.
Yeah, absolutely. Being my first time at a tea garden, just the travel out here, the remoteness is just absolutely breathtaking. And of course, the people, the people here that make up the tea gardens, that farm the land and take care of it.
The natural ecosystem, the incredible balance here. There are no external inputs. Everything for this garden is supported comes from the garden, whether it's the cow manure, the citronella, which is its own form of insecticide.
The worm farm.
The worm farm.
Yeah.
It's all here.
So it's really a wonderful video. I want to talk about a few subjects, kind of do an arc. So starting with you as a person, entrepreneurship, then talk about sustainability and your companies, and then what our students should learn. So let's start with you. So you grew up in Massachusetts. Yep. Your dad was a famous academic, Russia scholar. I read his work in college. I was a Russian history student. Your mom was a famous China scholar. Did they feel like you kind of failed because you didn't become an academic? Or
I definitely was the slacker in the group from an academic perspective. I was probably more busier just doing lots of different activities. I mean, I did fine by most people's standards, but they were very, had high standards for what, not just what we were supposed to do in school, but what we were supposed to do in life.
And so you went to Harvard, and then you went to Yale Business School of Business, and then you were in a comfortable job in an investment management firm. I think you and Julie had 3 kids, and you came home one night and said, I'm going to quit my job and start an iced tea company. So how did that go at home?
Actually, it was a great conversation. I think, my wife Julie would say she always knew I was going to be doing something, just wasn't sure what. And actually, when we talked, we thought it might have been more nonprofit or political or something like that. So I just felt like I just got to a point. I knew I wanted to build something. I wasn't sure what. And it was after a presentation in New York City for the investment company. And I came back and I'd gone for a run after the presentation and I was thirsty. And I said, there's nothing in this cooler that's going to quench my thirst. It was all super sweet and I'm ready to do something about it. I sent just on the flight home, I sent an email to my professor from business school, Barry Nelbuff. I said, I think I'm ready to take action on this idea we had talked about when I was a student. And he had just come back from India where he had studied the tea industry and had come up with the name Honest Tea. And it just felt like this is something here. And Julie was and is, the first supporter, investor, advisor, and my parents were the second. And so I don't think anyone was too surprised.
Okay. And so you worked in politics and government, and you worked in a nonprofit. You taught. I guess on our, we're testing out different themes on our own website, Katya Pavlova is here. One of the themes you'll see on our homepage is building a more sustainable world through business.
Yeah.
So you wanted to be a change maker.
Yeah.
Why business? Why not nonprofit? Yeah. Why not government?
Yeah. So I had worked on Capitol Hill. We met on a presidential campaign, and there is obviously a major role government can play. But I felt like there were 2 things that struck me about government. One was, or a lot of things. One of them is that there's a lot of posturing as opposed to action. The second is that something could be done during one political regime and undone in a subsequent one. And I felt that if something could take hold in the marketplace, there's a better chance of it continuing. Now, that's a little ironic. I say that now because Honest Tea, which took hold and got bought by Coca-Cola, just got discontinued.
Right.
But in fact, I think in a way that proves my role because we've just launched Just Iced Tea, and we've immediately captured the market of the same market Honest Tea had. And so what it shows is that we had changed consumer behavior. Consumers, just because Honest Tea went away didn't mean people stopped wanting organic or stopped wanting fair trade.
So what is it that makes it a sustainable product? Honest Tea or Just Iced Tea or
all the Eat the Change. Yeah. Yes. So Eat the Change really is founded around this idea that we have to eat. The words Eat the Change is both a branding, but it's a call to action. It's a recognition that what we do, what we eat every day is the single biggest environmental act we take every day. I mean, it's great if you can buy a wind farm or, if you can buy a car, but that doesn't happen on a daily basis. The only thing we do daily that absolutely impacts the environment is what we eat. And so we have to find a way to move to more planet-friendly foods. And so what that means is looking at the energy footprint, the water footprint, the land footprint. And just to give you an example, a pound of almonds takes 1,900 gallons of water. A pound of carrots takes 20 gallons of water. And of course, a pound of beef also, over 2,000 gallons of water to produce, and not to mention the energy. And so what we do at Eat the Change is we look at all the different inputs that are involved. And of course, we also want to look at the chemicals. If it's non-organic, there's lots of chemical pesticides, chemical fertilizers, which both require energy, but also have other externalities related to them. And so we started with a mushroom jerky snack. That was our first product line. Mushrooms are incredibly efficient crops. They take 40 gallons of water to grow a pound of mushrooms, but they also feed on waste, and they can be grown multi-level layers. And so that was a fine place to start. And then we moved to carrots, and we were busy selling mushrooms and carrots when we got the news about Honest Tea being discontinued. And then we did my first reaction was shock and maybe just like, I've got to focus on these snacks. once I sort of got over the shock, we said, well, wait a minute, is tea environmentally, friendly crop? Well, absolutely. One of the things you probably saw in that video is there's these waterfalls, there's no irrigation. So tea is a crop. In fact, and there's no planting, there's no soil tillage for tea bushes are evergreen bushes. And so what happens is during the harvest season, the tea pickers pick the top leaves of the bush, then they'll move around the tea garden and those leaves regenerate and they go back and pick the same leaves. So it's just incredibly environmentally friendly crop.
So again, going back to what makes this sustainable is lower water usage, more regenerative.
Yeah.
Obviously,
low energy, low external needs. Obviously, if you can avoid chemical pesticides, chemical fertilizers as well.
And then supporting farmers in one of the poorest countries in the world.
Yeah, so that's an additional benefit with fair trade. Every time we buy a pound of tea leaves, a portion of the sales goes back to that community, and they can invest in the schools, as you saw, or buying an ambulance. Whatever the community deems their needs are. And you can have such a huge impact in a community like that.
Got it. So let's go back to Honest Tea. So you took a run and you were a good runner in college. You was on the running team. You call your professor. I guess investors made 21x on this transaction. So your professor did Perdioni. Yeah. Investment opportunities for deans? Or?
All I can say is it's great to have good relationships with your professors.
Okay.
It can lead to good things.
So then you have this idea, and then what? You started brewing tea in different flavors, and how did you do it?
We just literally started an email exchange, exchanging ideas, brand names. So we had the name Honest Tea, but we also playing around with like Liberty or Unity and all these other ideas. Then we realized that Honest Tea could be the umbrella brand. We started exchanging recipes back and forth. I started sampling anybody I knew who knew anything about food. So turns out a fellow Yale School of Management alum, worked in marketing at Fresh Fields Whole Foods, which was the precursor to Whole Foods here. And I went out to lunch with him and I gave him samples. And someone who had been an intern for Odwalla had, somebody I knew, and I took her lunch and gave her samples, and I was just looking for any kind of feedback, and obviously sharing samples. And over time, the recipes got refined. This all happened in the fall of 1997, and by November, I felt like there's enough here that I'm ready to take the leap. And so I gave notice at Calvert where I was working, and sort of wrapped up by the end of 1997.
And then you wrote a book, which is a wonderful book. We have, I think, copies for all the students here. And one thing that struck me is you were kind of sampling it, and then you were talking to a fellow from Whole Foods, and he said, all right, I'll take 15,000 cases, bottles.
Yeah.
And you didn't really have the product.
It's a little bit like the juggling the plates. Okay, well, I've got an investor who wants to invest. I've got a supplier I think I can buy from. And so, we presented to him. We didn't have a production facility at the time, but I had enough belief. I sort of had enough of a sense of what we were going to do that once he placed the order, that gave me that was the catalyst. Then I could say to the investors, okay, we got an order. Then I could go to the bottling plant. So I got I got some money I can pay for production, and that just sort of started everything going. And but it was a sale based on faith, and I had no experience in beverage, of course, but I at least had some credibility.
Right.
That I made a good case for why he should carry the product.
Right.
And he believed I'd be able to make it. And fortunately, we did.
Okay. So then how did you build the brand? And then how did distribution and shelf space is the key thing for consumer products?
So by the way, Laura in the back of the Just Iced Tea is one of our field marketers. And that's how we build brands. We hire amazing people who are perfect ambassadors for what we're doing. And we give them a product to taste. There's no way in the early stage of a food business there's no point in advertising. With something so different, you have to taste it. And so we do lots of different tastings, and I still gave out more samples of Honest Tea than anybody in stores. We would go to all. Initially, it was just the Whole Food stores we were in. So we went to all those stores and gave out cups of tea, and we gave out more samples than we sold.
Really?
Oh yeah, but we became the best-selling tea in those 17 Whole Food stores by the end of the summer of 1998, our first year.
So you started in kind of healthy food stores, and then what about Giant, Safeway?
Those came later. I mean, we had to develop our presence. So we went first to the natural food stores. We became the best-selling tea in the natural foods channel. And that was our, launch pad to go into more mainstream channels, to Giant, to Safeway, to Target, and, all the other places. By the way, American University was one of our earliest accounts, the Eagle's Nest. And,
nice.
Yeah, it was great.
You can get iced
just
tea.
Just available here. Yes.
So,
yes.
okay.
So please ask for it by name. And
actually, he's just to show you how entrepreneurship is in his DNA. Before he got here, he went to the stores.
I met with Kelly, who runs Chartwell's here, and this is an important just mindset for entrepreneurs. Business school is critical. It's a key piece of it. One of the things you don't necessarily learn as much in business school is sales. So sales is what makes this thing viable. And then what makes the impact viable. I can show you a nice video. We can all feel good about it. But if we don't drive volume through there, then it's a thought exercise. It's not about impact.
So how did you learn? We have a part of Kogod, which is called the Center for Professionalism Communication, which teaches students how to communicate, how to pitch, how did you learn that?
So, look, there's a great way to frame a sales pitch, and that's important. I wonder if in that school, if you guys also have I joke, the best preparation I had for sales was that I wrestled in high school and I was terrible.
Okay.
And so I got my first season, I was 1-12, and that was only because somebody didn't show up and I got the forfeit.
Okay, congratulations.
So the point is you have to be resilient.
Right.
So I think it's not that hard to communicate what you're doing and why it matters. What's really hard is to bounce back from defeat after defeat after defeat and still feel like what you're doing is worthwhile, you believe in it, and you're willing to go get defeated again. So that's a hard skill, and the best way to learn it is by doing it.
So Honest Tea became a huge success. The purchase price that Coca-Cola bought it for is not disclosed, but you sold, I think, 43% for around $400 million. So that implies about $1 billion valuation, and then it grew more. So it was an incredible success, but were there parts or points along the way where you went home to Julie and you said, I'm not sure this is going to work? Or I remember there was in your book, you talked about there was glass in the bottles at one point. And so there were some scary moments.
First 6 years were like that. The book, I appreciate us having the book here for people. Somebody brought the book up to me and said, this reads like a horror story. There were some really dark moments. The first, from 1999 to 2005, we owned a share of a bottling plant. And those were the longest 6 years of my life. It was a bottling plant in Pittsburgh. And I was driving every few weeks down to Pittsburgh, there and back in a day. And I was involved with change parts and labelers and water quality issues, things that had nothing to do with building a brand. We lost over $1 million, which is a lot of money to an early stage company, just trying to keep that plant going. And so that was distracting. It was draining. That was really hard. And then as you mentioned, we had a situation where broken glass was in 2 different bottles in 2 different stores, and Whole Foods has a 3 strikes and you're out policy. So we were one little piece of glass away from getting kicked out of Whole Foods, which would have been, obviously terrible for the business. And then just I would say annual or weekly, but daily trial of just not having enough cash. And that's by design. We wanted to run the business lean because we had to, more money you had, the bigger mistakes we'd make. And so just that's stressful. And within the first few months of us hitting the market, we were at just a family picnic, and I was having a piece of pizza, and I felt something hard in my mouth. Wait, that shouldn't be in a pizza. And it was my tooth that had cracked because I was grinding my teeth at night.
Okay, so a little stressful.
A little stressful for sure. Okay. Yeah. In fact, I went to the dentist after. She said, "You're grinding your teeth. You can get a mouth. I can teach you. You can sort of do relaxation exercises and yoga before bed, or you can get a mouth guard." So I'm going to need the mouth guard.
Okay. So you did something else that was very interesting, which you write about in your book, which is you had a different approach to constructing the capital structure.
Yeah.
And we teach entrepreneurship. Tommy White, I don't know if he's here. Danielle Vogel is here. So we teach students how to construct a cap table. And typically, a founder starts a company. They take a little piece. Well, they take a piece for themselves.
Right.
And then as they raise money, they get diluted. You did the opposite, right?
Yeah.
So tell us what you did and why you did that.
So as one of our investors said, this is an equity structure that only a game theorist could love. Well, Barry Nailbuff, my co-founder, was a game theorist. So I said, you're absolutely right. The idea was that we invested along with our founding investors at the exact same price. So I put money in, my parents put money in, Barry put money in. But then what happened is we had a series of warrants that as the value of the stock price grew, the warrants became in the money. And so just to give you a sense of it, we all invested initially at 50 cents a share. When the stock price went to $2.50, we got a bunch of warrants. And then when it went to $5, we went to a bunch of warrants. And, by the time we sold, it was up, over closer to 20.
Wow.
So the warrants were in the money, and it meant that we had more, basically, as shareholders benefited, we benefited. And if they didn't benefit, we didn't benefit. And so investors went along with it. It was a little hard to explain to people. So that's one of the downsides, but it definitely created the right incentives. And it also helped make the case that when we started to talk to companies like Coca-Cola, we were negotiating from a position of strength. We had enough of the company that no one else could say you have to sell to this or that, or frankly even to Coca-Cola. And so that was a real benefit.
So your company was kind of a movement company. It was different. There was a mission.
Yeah.
Your book is called Mission in a Bottle. Coca-Cola is a big conglomerate.
Yeah.
So did you struggle over whether to sell to Coca-Cola? What would happen with this brand that you created? What were the tensions there?
Well, for us, as I mentioned, scale is part of our impact. So, the mission had always been to democratize organics, not to just sell healthy food to healthy people. We want it to be available everywhere. And so we were growing well. We were the best-selling tea in the natural foods industry, but we wanted to move beyond that. We're in about 15,000 stores, and we believed, and it was the case, that we could go to 150,000 stores if we sold to Coca-Cola, and that's what happened. So no, I don't. At the time, I felt it was the right thing to do. I didn't really lose any sleep about the mission, because the mission in a bottle means that the mission is in the bottle. It's not that we were giving away profits with our giving away charity, with our profits. Every time we sold a bottle of tea, we were sourcing it from a garden that had organic certification. Everything we sold was fair trade certified. So every community we were sourcing from, whether it was a tea garden in India or a sugar farm in Paraguay, was benefiting from the purchase. And the product was less calories. So every time we were out there, we're displacing some other empty calorie drink that could really make an impact. So for us, the growth was scale. And just to give you an example, the most successful part of Honest Tea was Honest Kids, and it's still a product that's on the market. When Honest Kids launched at McDonald's, it's a 35-calorie juice box. It replaced an 80-calorie juice box. We sold over 200 million units in the first year, and obviously more since then. And so that's over 1 billion calories we removed from the empty calories we removed from the American diet. So that's the benefit of scale. And obviously, terribly disappointing Honest Tea is not around, but Honest Kids still is. And as I said, that marketplace reached a whole different level of scale because of what we did with Coca-Cola.
So you could have done nothing really, but then you have this entrepreneurial bug. So you start this company, Eat the Change.
Yeah.
And it's focused on snacks. And then one day you read in the paper, or maybe you hear a rumor that Coca-Cola is shutting down this brand that was your baby.
Yeah,
so
I'll tell you how to. So first of all, let me just correct it. It is an entrepreneurial bug, but for me, what drove me back in was the impact bug. Because I literally did, we went through a whole process. Do I think about politics at this point? I've sold Honest Tea, or do I try to go back in? And it was about impact. There's more work to do. This is important work. With the Honest Tea situation, I know the dates, May 23rd, I got a text, May 22nd, I got a text from a friend at Coca-Cola asking if I could speak to senior management on the 23rd. And they gave me the courtesy of informing me before they told the world that they were going to be discontinuing Honest Tea. And yeah, I was shocked. I put on that day, I put a LinkedIn post about it. And that post kind of blew it up. It got over 1 million views and hundreds and thousands of different responses. And that really catalyzed, this is too big an opportunity for us not, and too important. First of all, these tea gardens, which you saw, Honest Tea, was one of the largest customers. And for them to lose that was going to have a material impact on them and on the whole organic movement. And so I said, not on my watch. We're going to go back in.
So you're making these carrot snacks and mushroom snacks, and then you decided Just Iced Tea. So how did you come up with this name, Just Iced Tea?
This is great because I was talking to, I was one of our investors, somebody was saying, gosh, what branding agency did you work with? I said, well, it was Barry and me talking on the phone. Julie was in the car. And we got close. The other one we were thinking of was Integrity. Integrate tea. But just that was already taken.
Okay.
And Just Iced Tea was just perfect for what we were looking for. And then, of course, with Honest Tea, we had the phrase "just a tad sweet." This we could say "just sweet enough," and it just felt right. And it has. I mean, and it's given us the license to dig even deeper on what does just mean. And so for me, that what you saw in Mozambique really will be, I hope, a very important part of the legacy of what we're building here. And we're going to work to convert as much of our supply chain over to that garden.
To that tea garden.
Yeah, because it is such a amazing community.
So where are you in the evolution of the new company compared to where you were with Honest Tea?
So Honest Tea, just to give you a sense of scale, we got to about, in 2006, we hit about 13.5 million in sales. That was 8 years in. And I feel, based on sort of what we're seeing here this month, we'll hit that number here in our, I guess you could say, our second year, year of business. We're just, so the beauty of we move so fast. So I mentioned May 23rd is when we heard about Honest Tea being discontinued. June 6th was when we decided to commit to launching. September 6th, 90 days later, was when we were in the market selling the product. So 90 days is, for anyone who knows consumer packaged goods, that's science fiction. There's no, I mean, Coca-Cola, and it's not a knock on them, but like 18 months is a viable time frame to commercialize a product. So we just move super fast, and we are the top. We just found out we have become the top selling tea inside of Whole Foods.
Wow.
So it was quick, and so we're running at a very fast pace. And obviously it's great. We want to be. It's meaningful to be the best selling tea in the natural foods industry, but the goal again is to democratize this, and so. We want, as I said, not just healthy, wealthy people should have access to organic and healthier drinks.
And tell us about the snacks.
This is so much fun. So I mentioned that Honest Kids was our most successful part of Honest Tea. And it's in lunch boxes. It's in Wendy's, Subway, Chick-fil-A, Arby's, and McDonald's. And we said, how do we make a snack that could go in the lunchbox alongside Honest Kids? Something a parent knows is better, but a kid still thinks is fun and delicious. And so we initially said, well, maybe we can make like a carrot chip instead of a potato chip. Carrots are nutrient dense. You get vitamin A. There's good fiber. What could we do? We tried drying out chips and couldn't quite get the right texture. And we were losing a lot of the carrot because you can't use that little end of the carrot. And one day Spike my co-founder, got delivered carrot coins, the little kind you might find in like a casserole or something. And he says, well, we can't make chips with those. And so instead, he tried soaking the carrots in apple juice and then dried them out, and they took on this chewy flavor. I'm like, well, that's really interesting. We realized we can make a product that is essentially organic carrots, organic apple juice, and flavoring, and they would be a snack that, the recipe is incredibly simple, but the kids could think is fun, and it has the full excellent source of vitamin A. It has the fiber of carrots, and it actually turns out it's slightly more nutritious than raw carrots because the bioavailability of raw carrots is when they're raw, the body doesn't absorb the nutrients as well. The cell walls are too hard. When they're slightly cooked, they're actually more better absorbed. So we're really excited.
How's it
about
going?
It. It's just getting started. So it's a new category.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing a good response in terms of a lot of stores picking it up. It's selling much slower than fruit chews, which is what people sell. It ironically don't have fruit in them. And so we think it's a great challenger category, and we'll look forward to building it.
So when I go to the airport and take a plane, I usually get M&Ms.
Yeah.
And then I'll take some baked Lays, which makes me feel better than getting not like regular.
You just the good old starch, yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So let me.
But you can be taking the carrot juice as well.
I'll take the carrot.
And we have some for adults as well.
How much time do you want before we go to questions?
10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay. Let's talk about another thing we talk about in business school, which is leadership.
Yeah.
Okay. So you basically started this company with no experience.
Honest Tea.
Honest Tea.
Yeah.
Okay. You were an investor. You worked on the hill.
No experience in food, just to clarify.
Okay. So I mean, this is one of the great
Yeah.
things about entrepreneurs. I worked for David Rubenstein at Carlyle, and he had no investment experience, and he had the temerity to say, I'm going to start an investment firm. So what made you think that you could actually do something that you really weren't qualified to do?
I mean, I think that's qualified in a very narrow, I wasn't qualified in a very narrow sense.
Right.
So what I would, if I were pitching, as an investor, I say I had run, not just been sort of leaders in school, whether it was class officer or organizations. I had founded organizations in school, whether it's a music group or a political group. I had run a nonprofit, overseen 50 people and sort of raised the funding for that. All of those are, and then I had been a press secretary on Capitol Hill. So I'd been, really thinking about messaging and communication. Mm-hmm. So all of those are absolutely business skills. I just had to package them to make somebody believe that they were. And they're totally relevant. And what we're doing here is, this is a movement. I mean, this is, I'll talk about it, I pitch a product, but Eat the Change is a call to action. It's a, we want everybody to sort of internalize this and realize that and be accountable for what I eat is my environmental impact. And I should take change, and I should encourage others to take change. So all of those things are totally relevant to running a business. Now, I didn't, at the time, I had studied accounting, but I hadn't practiced accounting. Right. Hadn't practiced finance, but those are all they're applicable. But the biggest one was working with people, getting them inspired and excited. I say that one of the best management lessons I had was managing my son's 8-year-old baseball team.
Okay.
I'm not there. I also had no experience, so I didn't play baseball.
Okay.
But this was a travel team, so these were kids who were good athletes, and I realized all it is ego management. Like, I've just got to keep these kids, I got to make them feel good about each other. They have to work well cooperatively and then support each other. And that team was undefeated in the summer season.
So if I went out and tried to start a company, I could just say I coached my sons.
It counts for a lot.
Okay.
It counts for a lot. It was just so many times, I'd find myself talking to one of, I had a sales manager who's super emotional, and I was like, this is just like my guy, melting down on the mound.
Okay. What type of leader are you? How would you describe yourself, and then how do people around you describe your leadership skills?
I'd like to think I'm someone who really empowers people, and so what that means is not a micromanager. I hire people who I genuinely love, who I really are impressive, and I do everything I can to support them. And we just had a board meeting last week, and the feedback from the board, it was a good board meeting, but one of the board members said it just felt like there were too many people in the room. Okay. But my approach is just to be inclusive, and I want everyone to. In order for people to do great work, they have to understand how what they do what's the impact of it within the organization and within the world. And so you have to give them the information for that. You have to give them the resources to do that. And ideally, you can create the structure for them to do that. And then you just step back and let them do what they do. And one of the just most beautiful aspects of launching this brand is that of our team, we have 22 people. More than half of them, including Laura, used to work at Honest Tea.
Wow.
And so these are people who I'm not giving myself the credit, it's just who love being part of an organization that has meaning and a supportive dynamic.
Let me ask you about your evolution as a leader. So I've made a million mistakes, and I have regrets for all those. Tell us about some mistakes you made and how you adjusted, improved.
Yeah.
I mean, not everybody can have all the skill sets.
No. Yeah. And one of the things that it's a really interesting dynamic. So one of the things I was bad at was making hard decisions.
Okay. Because you're nice.
Yeah, I try to be nice, but it turns out when you try to be nice, sometimes you're actually not nice, which is, if it's firing people,
yes.
If it's discontinuing a product, I would try to draw it out and sort of, try to avoid making that difficult decision. I've learned since when you have clarity, you have to move really quickly. And we had a discussion at the board meeting last week about discontinuing a particular product line, and Barry, my Honest Tea company, who's on our board, said, well, maybe we could just kind of, let it continue out there. And I said, Barry, I don't want to do anything half-assed. We're either doing it and we're all in, or we're going to discontinue it. And so that's an awareness now that I've gotten better at.
What about pitching a product?
Yeah.
Okay, so I actually saw, I mean, I'm kind of a neurotic preparer, so I watched one of your TED Talks this morning. And I remember you talking about your elevator pitch, and Danielle teaches this, and you have a couple minutes or a minute, and you said you really have 10 seconds. So tell us about how you think about messaging a brand, because we're thinking about this with Kogod as we focus on sustainability,
Right.
Building a more sustainable world through business. Does that work? Does that not work? We're testing it. So how do you...
Yeah, you really only have if you have a sentence, it should be a short sentence, so sort of 10 words. And for us, it has to be, say, delicious, planet-friendly food, chef-crafted, planet-friendly food. You've just got to make it so someone can understand quickly. I mean, think about when you go to a store and you are looking at the shelf. There's hundreds of options. How are you going to be relevant to people? And so, an important, it's got to have a pretty label. It's got.
So, what's your tagline? What's your pitch for this?
So eat the change. We say snack to the future.
Snack to the future. Okay, so in those words, snacks, it's snacks. Yeah. And the future means it's healthy. It saves the planet.
Right. Thinking future forward in your thought pattern. Of course, climate friendly in the name. Eat the change means there's an activism element to it as well.
Okay. Let's talk about our students. So you went to your professor. We have a lot of great faculty members here, and said, let's start a business.
Yeah.
What advice would you have to students in terms of being entrepreneurs and being change makers?
So the first thing I would say is make sure you've got an idea that's genuinely different. Like, I can't tell you how many people sort of say, I've got a great salsa recipe. And I just say, it sounds great. Make it, share it with your friends.
Okay.
Don't go into salsa businesses. So make sure it's really something different, materially and notably different, and better, of course. The other thing I would say is find a great partner or two. I mean, I whether it's at Beyond Meat, Eat the Change, Plant Burger, I always want to work with a partner because I know I don't have all the answers. I know I'm not going to always have the right energy, or I'm not always going to be able to do what needs to be done, and find someone who's complementary. And Barry and I are wonderfully complementary. He is a professor. He's analytical. He's creative. He's not always the most personally effective, interactions. His first sales call at Yale Dining Services with Honest Tea ended up in doors slammed and phones hung up on each other. And
we have some of those faculty members here
exactly,
too.
And then Spike is this incredibly creative chef, and my best thing is I make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich where I slice the bananas. That's my.
You slice them long ways.
Right on top of the peanut butter on the tie is good.
Yeah. Okay. And do you try to find a partner that has different strengths than you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses and what are say Spike's strengths? And
Spike is an incredibly creative chef and foodie, and so and he's really good at social media. I know social media is important, but that's not my wheelhouse.
He's good at it. He's very creative. Okay. Last question is, what are the most exciting things you see out there in sustainable foods or sustainable products, and where should we be thinking in terms of?
So despite the bumps that have happened with Beyond Meat in that category, I'm 100% confident that plant-based protein, as a whether it's dairy or meat, is just a huge and important opportunity. It needs to be, because we can't feed. We need 2.5 Earths to feed the planet the way the United States feeds itself. And last time I checked, there weren't 2.5 Earths.
Okay.
So we have to find ways to deliver nutrient-dense foods that are delicious. And so what's starting to happen is just the beginning of creating products, new categories of food, but still really nutritious, incredibly environmentally friendly. And so that for me we've been through a lot of gyrations, but it's only been 10 years. And so there's a lot more ahead.
Right. Got it. Okay. So we're going to take questions. Before we do, I want to just get a picture of everybody holding up their Honest Tea. Hold it up really high. There you go. Okay, great. So for those of you who are online, you can put the questions in the text. And then which student wants to ask the first question? We have microphones. Yes, and maybe just introduce yourself, tell us what year you are. And
Hi, thank you
Hi.
so much for the talk. I'm actually a senior, so I'm graduating in the spring of this year. And I actually had two questions,
Sure.
but I think I'll just ask one of them just to give other people a little more time. So I know that Honest Tea was first bought out by Coca-Cola, a conglomerate. Would you make the same decision that you did with Honest Tea with Just Tea if, let's say, another conglomerate were to approach you and say, hey,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about buying?
It's a tough question. Here's what I would say. I go back to what I said earlier, that impact is going to govern all of my decisions. Like, I'm always going to look for the way to have the highest and deepest impact with what we build. In retrospect, Honest Tea was too small. We were at 23 million in sales when we took that first investment. It was too small to operate within a company that size. So I wouldn't even think about doing anything with Just Iced Tea or Eat the Change until we were well over $100 million.
Okay.
But the fact is, if somebody came and said, we have the resources and the commitment to scale this in a material way that more than you are able to, then I have to listen to that. That's the impact speaking. The people who we did the deal with at Coca-Cola were genuinely committed to scaling the brand the right way. And in fact, the one consolation, even though Honest Tea was discontinued, was it was never compromised. So there was never an effort to move away from fair trade, to move away from organic, to make it less sweet. All of those, and that, to me, that's a better outcome than, hey, this thing's, we're going to try tweaking it now and make it less honest. Like, that would have been my worst nightmare. That said, there just aren't guarantees. So the only thing I can do is embed the values into the product and make it as big as I can under my own steam and hope that we can scale it. And obviously I hope to ingrain in consumers these behaviors and this mindset. And regardless of what happens to the brand, if that we can still succeed if we do that.
Good question. Okay, next question. Yes.
Hello, my name is Brenda, and I'm in the sustainability master's class. And I have a couple of questions that I would like to ask you.
Great.
The first one being, where is the production facility for Just Iced Tea? And is it in US or somewhere near Africa? Because Mozambique is close to East Africa. Actually, it's an East African country.
Yeah.
And so the question would be, what is the carbon footprint associated with transporting the tea leaves to a faraway facility?
Yes.
Because, and number two, is this transportation leading to high greenhouse gas emissions?
Yep.
And number three, does it make sense to transport tea leaves over 1,000 kilometers or thousands, billions of kilometers to bring the product to the community just because they want to have, sustainable, good, which is all a good cause. But at the same time, when we look at the trade-off in regards to the carbon emissions and the benefits that we're giving to the consumers, is it worth it?
Sure. Thank you. Really, really good and important question. So what happens is the tea leaves that you saw in that garden are picked and they're dried there. And then they're put in those bags, if you saw in the video, the bags, and then they're put on pallets. That's put in a container. The container is then shipped to the United States. Shipped on a ship. We then take those pallets, bring them to our bottling plants. We have one in California and one in Pennsylvania. We take the tea leaves out of the bags, put them into tanks of water, and brew them there. And so this is, in my view, the lightest. That's the lightest carbon footprint you could make with this product, because if you brewed the tea in Mozambique, for example, then you'd be shipping containers, heavy glass containers, heavy water overseas, much, much heavier. So we can, in one container, we can ship enough tea leaves to basically take care of us for an entire quarter of the year. So it's super efficient. This is some of the best tea in the world. So, and the only other places where you could get tea this high quality would be India or China. So that by definition, you're talking about places that are far away. Tea is a very unique product. I can't grow tea like that in the United States and have the same taste. It certainly wouldn't be organic. It wouldn't have the same quality. So what's interesting about that trail is that even with that product traveling those miles, even with it being organic and fair trade, for a bottle of tea like this, the cost of the tea leaves is somewhere between 3.5 to 4.5 cents. So we can have the world's really the best tea and invest in these communities and still make this product that's economically accessible. And from my point of view, from the carbon footprint, it is very efficient. And again, think about what I said. If you look at the full carbon footprint, there's no irrigation. There's no other energy used in the cultivation of the tea. It's not like there's chemicals sprayed or tractors that go through the fields. So it actually is a very resource efficient way to deliver a product. And the other thing to say is that tea on its own has great nutrients and antioxidants that you couldn't get if I made just a powder or a syrup or an extract or something like that.
Katya, we have an online question.
We do. Can you hear me? Okay. We have a question from Emily Bass, and she's asking about education of consumers. So what are ways to educate consumers on sustainability, especially if you don't have access to a lot of resources, but you do have a consumer-facing product?
Yeah. So we do everything we can because for our brand, of course, we want to sell product, but we also want people to join us in this movement. So in addition to the field marketing that Laura and her colleagues do, we also do a lot of social media, and we have a promotion every year called the Incredible Edible Planet Challenge. And what we outline is during Earth Month, 21 days of action. And every day there's a different step you can take to eat the change, to move. So the first day, it's try a plant-based dairy instead of a cow-based dairy. Another day it'll be make a food with leftovers. Another day it'll be try a new ingredient to support more biodiversity in your diet. And there's Taco Tuesday, and there's a pizza day, a plant-based day. So all of these are ways that, and we join with other brands to do that. We obviously have to. We're still a small company, so we need a broader network to spread that story.
Yes, over here.
Hi, I'm Joel. So this is not my question, but if I were to walk into Whole Foods and drop your name, they would give me free tea, right?
Not a chance.
Hey, shoot or shoot. No, but my question is, when you were first starting, what were some of your biggest pain points in terms of expansion? I know you said cash because you wanted to be a lean company.
Yeah.
But I guess what were some of your biggest pain points and how did you overcome them?
The biggest one was distribution. So, we got into Whole Foods. It was great. They were a great partner. They are a great partner. And we got into other stores like Mom's Organic Market and other natural retailers. But getting beyond that was our hardest, because what happened is I'd go to the beverage distributors, and it was usually the folks, I'll say guys here because that's not a sexist term. It was all men and white men who distributed Snapple. And I'd go to them and say, we'd love to have you carry this product. And they'd say, it's not sweet enough. I don't care for the taste of it. I don't know what organic is. That sounds weird. This is back in 1998, 99. And so those distributors were a key. We had to overcome that because otherwise we're only going to be in the natural channel. And basically what happened is I went to Bethesda Bagels and I said, I want you to carry this product. And the guy, Steve, who's still there, said, we'll take it, but how are we going to get it? Yeah, he said, well, why don't you talk to my corned beef distributor? So we started up with Savile Foods. You may see those trucks. Right. And he started going to the delis. Then I went to Bradley Food and Beverage, and Tom, who still runs that, some of the same characters, he said, well, we work with a cheese distributor. Why don't you work with them? So we got a cheese distributor. And then we went to Chevy Chase Supermarket, and Kevin's not there. That store's not there anymore. But they said, why don't you work with our charcoal distributor? And we sort of built this patchwork of distribution. And then what happened was, then the Snapple guys started calling me back because I was taking their shelf space. And they're like, oh, why don't you? We'll give this a try. And
so do the cheese distributors look down on the beef distributors or the beef? Like, what's the hierarchy?
As long as they carry the product, and basically anyone who had a truck was fair game.
Okay. Yes, back there. Yeah, you.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, perfect. Good evening. My name is Langston Swalford. I'm actually not in Kogod. I'm in the School of Public Affairs across the yard.
Right, excellent.
And so I'm a master's student in public administration, and part of being a public administration student is, doing business, for lack of a better term, administration, executive stuff function for the common good as opposed to privatization and maximizing profit. But I mean, people do like money. Money is a thing that people like, and particularly I do like money. But I also do want to give back and have provide a sense of common good. So how do you balance that integrity and desire to create common good, but you still also understand that you are creating and running a private empire? And how do you kind of just balance those and do the best for both of those things?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. It is a tension. I mean, there's certainly not every decision is obvious, but we know in order to have the kind of impact that I care so much about in Mozambique, we have to have a thriving business, right? Like, it can't just be a tourist visit and then, here's a few tea leaves to we want to be ordered. In fact, in the video, we're updating it. The woman speaking, when she speaks, she's actually saying, we want you to buy more tea.
Right.
We were having a meeting. What are your requests? What do you want? Are you going to ask for healthcare or hospitals? She's like, buy more tea.
Buy more tea.
And that's my goal as well. And so I have to make sure so one way to sell more tea would be to make the price cheaper, but I have to make sure I have enough margin that I can, pay our team and be able to afford the product. So, I'll always make sure we have a viable business first. And then when I embed the mission in the bottle, then I never have to make the decision like, oh, should I be, donating this or that? Like, I know every time we buy it, the fair trade premium is part of the recipe. And to me, that's the best way to structure a business is embed your mission in the business itself. And then we don't have to spend a lot of time. I mean, I love to spend time just talking about mission, but I don't have to spend time thinking about it. I know it happens with every purchase.
Good question. Okay. Yes, Katya, another online question.
We have another online question. And I'm so sorry, I hope I pronounced that correct. Owonikoko from online. They're asking about some examples of game-changing sustainability initiatives that you are aware of that have already been implemented in the world that you would love to see further scaled.
Well, I think fair trade is a really powerful example because there, as you can see, there are clear needs around the world, and charity certainly has its place. But when you can create economic empowerment and community wealth, I think that can be even more powerful. I mean, this community. So just to give you a sense of contrast, in India, we funded an eye care initiative in northern India. We worked with the tea garden there, and we brought in eye care. This community of 13,000 people had never had eye care, and so these doctors found people who needed glasses, which obviously contributes to literacy, but also other things. In this community in Mozambique, that was so far from an economic need because they didn't have schools. So how do you even know if you're illiterate if 40% of the children had never been to school? So to me, this is a sustainability initiative. And then of course there's the economic impact. When you can educate women and girls earlier in life, they stay in the workforce longer and have fewer children as well. And that's an important way to support their community too. So I think fair trade is a model that is still nascent. It's still not many people know about it. And I'd love to see it expand and proliferate into more categories of food as well.
Great. We have time for one more question. You already, go ahead in the back. Yeah. Yep.
So I have a question about climate change as well. My name is Chandler, and I'm a Master's of Sustainability Management student. But you're in an industry that's really vulnerable to climate change, agriculture, water. I'm just wondering what you're doing to manage your risks for climate change.
Great.
Yeah, well, one of the things for us is because of the categories we've chosen, we're actually less exposed. So certainly like the meat industry, I would say is very exposed. And you saw whether it's avian flu or the prices of eggs right now is so they're much more exposed. I think you could make the case. I could make the case that because of our orientation, we're much less vulnerable. The tea gardens are generally at high altitudes. There's so much water there. They sort of set the clock by when it rains in Mozambique. So there aren't water issues. I feel like our industries aren't, but I would certainly say the legacy animal-based industries are much more vulnerable.
Got it. Well, Seth Goldman, this has been great. Thank you very much. You are truly a game changer in sustainability, and we're grateful that you could be the inaugural speaker in our series. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for coming. Great job. Thanks very much.